So it's actually really hard when everywhere you look you see that, because then you start actually seeing it yourself in the mirror. So take it from me, I'm someone who had to work hard for pretty much everything that I have achieved. It is possible, you can do what you want, so you could really make a decision for yourself and not the decision that other people want. Isn't that right? Yeah? All right, let's tell them. Let's go, come on. Now, although you should definitely believe in yourself and do what makes you happy, there are a couple of non-negotiables that you have to get across in order to get into medicine. You have to have the grades, you have to get through your exams, and you have to accomplish the interview. A good way to think about it is, say, let's just pour a whole bunch of this rice into a cup. These are all the people that want to actually do medicine. And if you were to count how many actual individual rice things there are there, I don't know what rice things are. Yeah, it's a lot. You know what I mean? Like, there is heaps and heaps of people who want to do medicine. And yeah, if we just let everyone in, then there would be too many. You know, you have to filter it some way. So I'm going to just scatter some people out who just, I don't know, magically didn't make it. But there needs to be a little point there. If we made it too tight, then no one would get in. So let's pour it back out, and we need to filter it some way. This is how many people actually probably make it in the end. It's a handful. There's not too much, but there's not too little. And that's essentially what we have to do. We have to get over those hurdles, then eventually some people make it. So look, once you're over those hurdles that you actually have to get through, you need to actually think about what really matters and what actually at the end of the day gets you employed and gets you a job. And I think there's a couple of things that I think are absolute non-negotiables. That's just my opinion, and it's just one person saying it, but from my short amount of time working as a doctor, I think that these three things are the absolute best things, and you can do anything if you have these. First thing is work ethic. I think that if you're willing to put in the hard yards, people will see that and respect that, and they'll actually value you and your effort. If you're putting effort in, you will get better over time, and people invest in that because they want to see people who care and respect the profession that they're in. Number two is moldability. Now, I have really become fascinated with this term and what it actually means. And for those of you who have never heard it, I think the best way to explain what moldability is your ability to change and adapt to the situation that you're in. Maybe there's a difficult person who you have to work with for the whole year. How can you overcome that to still bring the best care for your patient? Maybe there's a difficult situation in a operation or something like that. Maybe there's a difficult clinical case where the patient has multiple complexities and comorbidities. How can you overcome all those things to arrive at the best decision for that particular patient? Being able to mold into your specific scenario for your specific patients is an absolute must. Working with your surrounding team and the patients that you're looking after, everyone's going to be different and have their own little different nuances. You need to bring those together to make the end result as good as possible. Number three is flexibility. And I think being flexible as a doctor is probably one of the biggest things you need to have, because the medical system works 24/7. You might be on call on the most annoying weekends. You might be on call on Christmas or New Year's Day or your birthday. It doesn't really matter. You have to be able to pick up the slack when others are sick or away, and actually just be able to be there, be present, and do your job when it matters. And unfortunately, those are at some really tricky times, and it doesn't always fall into the easy 9 to 5 category. So having the flexibility of the actual day to do your job is a real must. And apart from all the day-to-day stuff that you should consider when you're actually a doctor, you know, waking up early, going on ward rounds, you might be in the operating room, you might be in clinic, you might have after hours, you might have on call. all those things on a day to day, yes, you need to consider that. You also really need to consider what your life would be like outside medicine as a doctor. And for some people, medicine can be a very all-encompassing specialty in the sense that they don't get a lot of time for that other stuff. Yes, of course, it's very, very possible, and I'm not saying anything against that, but you need to actually just consider that it might be very tricky in some instances to do that, and it actually takes up a lot of time being a doctor. So if you're imagining the life of a doctor to have lots of days off and you're able to spend a lot of time outside of medicine doing stuff, it might be just worth considering that medicine's quite a busy specialty, and you might actually not get a lot of time to do those things, or as much time as you would have liked. By no means am I saying that you can't or you shouldn't do it if you want something like that. There are plenty of instances where doctors have families and relationships and children and hobbies outside of medicine. It's just a little bit trickier because medicine takes up a whole lot of your time. So, yeah. And I mean, it's not all like that. It's just, quite busy, especially when you're training. And there's always going to be exams. There's always going to be courses and training days. I mean, even the doctors who are on a specific training program still have to do exams, they still have to do interviews, and they still have to do courses and ongoing training to keep leveling up in their profession and their specific specialty. So it's only really when you get to a consultant level, which is the top of the top, that you don't really have to sit exams again. I don't really think that they're making consultants sit exams again at the moment. They might in the future, but to be honest, it's just until you get to that stage, which can actually take quite a while. So if you take, for example, me, it takes people a few years to get onto a specific training program of their choice. And you actually need to get on a training program. I mean, you could actually work as a doctor who's never on a training program, but I guess you're never going to have that security of a specific specialty. You're always going to be working as a junior doctor. So it takes time to get on, maybe 4, 5, anywhere up to like 8 or 10 years to try to get onto a training program. Once you're on, the training program usually lasts about 5 to 6 years, depending on what your specialty is. It can be shorter, it can be longer, depending on what it is in particular. And then once you finish that training program, then you can be officially called a consultant. And that all up could be 20 years for someone. I mean, it can be much less depending on how you structure your pathway, but having a good 20-year block to try to successfully get to that top level as a doctor, being a consultant, is quite a time-consuming thing, and often it requires a lot of travel. You need to travel around to different hospitals to level up your training. Some people even need to go overseas to do what we call a fellowship, which is the final year of your training to really specialize in a specific area. And yeah, a lot of people use that opportunity to go overseas to see what everyone else is doing and to level up and maybe to travel a bit. But for most people, especially in Australia, I'm not sure what it's like overseas or in other countries, but in Australia, you usually train in one state. It's very tricky to get on to a training program if you move states all the time, because you really need to know the people in your department in your state. And then once you're in, you often move around to hospitals every single year. So in 1 year, you might be 2 hours away and you need to move closer to that place in order to work. And then the next year you might be in the complete opposite direction, so you need to move house again. And they don't actually let you know until very late which hospital you are at or need to move to. So being able to uproot your life like that, you need to have a certain degree of flexibility, and it can be very straining, especially if you're with someone, you're in a relationship, you're set up in a specific location, and now you need to uproot that and move to a different place. It can be quite challenging. So just to have these things in mind, that you need to be very flexible, especially in your training, to get it done. And it's just some of those things that you need to consider. They're not, red flags, or they're not things to specifically rule out medicine because of, but you just need to weigh them up in your mind as an overall picture. Do I really want to be doing something like that? Well, yeah, I might really, really want to do medicine, but just have these things in mind and use everything I'm telling you as more information to make an educated decision, rather than, oh, you said that, so it's an out. I'm never doing it because of this or because of that. So, yeah. Look, we've chatted a lot about, what you need to consider, what people say, and who you shouldn't listen to and who you should listen to. But I think, maybe what would be the most compelling for you guys is, why am I still in medicine? And, I think there's 3 things that I really like that still keeps me going. I really like the mental stimulation. One of the biggest reasons I got into medicine in the first place is because I really don't like being bored. I think medicine is such an ever-growing specialty. It's always changing, it's always adapting, there's always new things you can do and you can look into and discover, and there's research, and it's always evolving, medicine as a specialty. So that's one of the biggest things that I wanted to have, is the constant mental stimulation to keep on growing and adapting with my career. And the second reason is that, whether you like it or not, doctors are one of the most employable people in the workforce today, and probably have always been. Everyone needs doctors. There's always a need for ongoing health professionals. So the space of healthcare is a really safe, secure job to have. And it's always nice to know that anywhere you can go, you will get a job as a doctor. There's always a need for it. Yes, specific areas of medicine are more competitive, and you may not be able to get the job that you always want, but there always will be a job for you in medicine. And that's a really reassuring thing. I think the last thing is probably the most important thing for anyone in any specialty or in any workplace, is that I like it and I like the people I work with. And if you find the people that you gel with, you get on with, and you actually like spending time with on a day-to-day basis, you probably are in the right area. And if you don't find that in medicine, it's not a rule out to say, oh, you need to leave medicine. I spent a long time trying to figure out where my niche was, and once you start to really gel with the people around you, I would say latch onto that, ride that wave, and be a part of those people for as long as you can. And if you can make that into a career, then that's probably the best thing for you. So find the people that are like you, that you enjoy spending time with, and then go down that route. That would be the best thing that I would say. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just me, and this is just one opinion. If you want to do something different, or if you want to listen to other people, that's fine. But all I'm asking is that you probably just consider the bigger picture, what things look like after you get into medicine, what things look like 20, 30, 40 years down the track, if you still really want to be a doctor. And I think more importantly, how your life fits into everything around it. It's not the be all and end all, so you need to find a way to make your career work with the things that you also want to do in life. And if those two overlap, you've made an absolute winner. So yeah, there you go. Maybe this has helped you maybe this has helped you figure out if you'd be a good doctor or not. And if it hasn't, then it's a free video, so you got what you paid for, which is absolutely nothing. Anyways, it's that time of the afternoon where it's nap time or coffee time. And today I choose coffee. So let's go.